Good morning to all. I'm Suresh Iyengar, one of the business advisors for North Central Texas Small Business Development Center. Today is National Lobster Day and National Cooking Day. The SBDC is a leading provider of assistance for small businesses. We are grant funded, which allows us to offer services at no cost to you, the business owner or entrepreneur. This is a quick reminder. We will be recording this webinar and then adding it to our YouTube channel. Today's webinar will be interactive, so please feel free to raise your hand, which by the way is the small button at the bottom, if you have a question or comment. Our presenter today is Ashley Smalley. She is the founder of Smalley Consulting, a certified human resource professional, a trusted consultant, an adept facilitator in the space for workplace culture, and small business owner. Her passion is for people to enjoy their work because they enjoy the people with whom they work. And she accomplishes this with her talent for tailored leadership and people development strategies. Ashley's eclectic work experience from retail, local government, oil and gas, and the local church has given her a unique perspective on people in the workplace, regardless of industry. She uses that perspective to bring practical teaching that can be utilized immediately. Please take it away, Ashley.
Thanks, Suresh. I appreciate you reading that ridiculous bio. I'm thinking we should have actually come up with one that was really silly. That would have been more fun, like that I used to be a tight line walker or something like that in the circus. So note to self, we'll do that next time. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be with you today. I'm glad for everyone who was able to join the call with us. And for all of you who are going to watch after the fact, we missed you today. We're going to be talking about leading with laughter. And Suresh gave very respectful instructions. He said, if you have a question or a comment, it's interactive, raise your hand. And I would say you can raise your hand or you can just interrupt me, and we're going to allow that as well. Today is not a dry topic. The last two that I've been with you all in the last series on leadership in small business has been on things like sexual harassment and employment law. And I felt like we were due for one that was a little less dry. So it will be more fun if you are able to participate, if you're able to show me your beautiful or handsome face, and if you want to laugh with us, that's fine. I was telling Suresh and Roger before the recording started that without that, it might accidentally be dry, and so that's certainly not the intention. Suresh, are you sharing your screen or should I be sharing mine? It looks like maybe we went back to yours. How's that? Does that look better to everybody?
There you go.
The Leading with Laughter slide now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if you will allow me to, let me share a story with you. I don't know if any of you have ever had a wardrobe malfunction in a public setting. I have had many. And not long ago, I had gone to this, my background is in HR, and so I still do a lot of networking in the HR space. And I had gone to this HR networking lunch, and there was like a legal hour before and then the lunch. And so I work up until recently worked from home a lot, which meant I could wear whatever I wanted. But then there are these days where I could dress up and go, pretend to be a professional someplace. And I had gone to this event, and I had on a blazer and I had on this blouse that had I don't know if you've ever seen the flight attendants will wear, and it kind of ties at your neck, and then it the bow goes down. And so I get to the event, and I get a cup of tea, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening just very intently to this very thrilling legal presentation. And I'm leaned over, just like leaned into what this attorney is saying, just riveted, right? And then it's time to get up and go to the lunch. And I look down, and the little tie part of my shirt, it was like a mustard yellow shirt, that tie part had flopped over into my teacup and had just been soaking the tea of my cup just up and up and up. So now the bow is like this two-tone color, and I am still with all of my peers who their outfits looked like they got dressed that morning on purpose. And so I had this like really humiliating, like, well, now I still have to go to the lunch. And that got me to thinking about other wardrobe malfunctions that I've had, like the time that I spoke at this really nice event and I had a big jumper on that zipped from the bottom to the top. And somebody zipped me in it at home, and I wasn't thinking that when I got there for hours that evening that some stranger would have to zip me out of it if I needed to use the restroom. I went to a engagement where I, just packed an outfit that I had worn before, not realizing that the front of that shirt had a huge stain on the front of it. And I had an 8 a.m. engagement the next morning, and I get up to get dressed, and there's just this huge stain on the front of my shirt. So I had to wear it backwards for the day. And then that reminded me of a time that I got headshots made, and the zipper on my dress got stuck, and the photographer had to cut me out of it so that we could do the next outfit change. The reason I tell you this is I put every one of those on social media. I share that with the people in my life, and it's because laughter is good medicine. Laughter is good for the soul. It has a way of refreshing us and bringing us life, even in the midst of dark or difficult days. And so I think laughter is really, really important, so much so that I will just willingly embarrass myself in front of people if it means it will bring a smile to their face. I want us today to be thinking about how laughter might make our leadership better. We're going to look at some personal benefits of laughter. We're going to look at leadership benefits, and we're also going to look at organizational benefits and how when we have laughter and humor in our workplaces, that it actually endears people to us. It makes them feel like we're more approachable, and we are then in a position to actually lead them more effectively because we know them better. And so I'm hoping that you'll kind of go on this journey with me a little bit and thinking about those things. I know from personal experience as a small business owner and early on in my career in leadership, feeling like I needed to be the one that had it all together. I needed to be the one that took things very seriously. And what I found is, one, for me, that's inauthentic. I don't have it all together. And I don't think anything is all that serious. And so I found an inauthenticity there, but also I found when I began to just allow the natural humor in me to be part of what I do, that there were strengthened relationships. And so I'm sharing from that personal experience, and I'm hoping you'll go kind of on that journey with me. So let's look at those personal benefits of laughter. So there are physical benefits, and this is scientific stuff, right? There are physical benefits when we laugh. Science has proven that there is an increased blood flow in our body. There's an energy that comes with that laughter. We also see reduced muscle tension. And I don't know if your body does what my body does, but if there's tension in me, it is up here in my shoulders. And I used to deal with anxiety really significantly for like about 6 years. It was fairly debilitating. And my husband and I had plans one night to go to a comedy club. And I was having a little bit of a rough panic day that day. And I got in there, and I swear to you that my shoulders were touching my ears. I mean, it was just like this. But we spent 3 hours in that comedy club and laughed and laughed. And I noticed that as I laughed, my shoulders came down. And by the time we left that night, the panic attack was over. There was a lightness in my body. And that was the benefit of laughter, the physical benefit of laughter. I don't know if y'all have experienced that sort of thing, but really that laughing does something in our muscles, and it causes a release of tension. It also burns calories. which I never hear really in the course of my day-to-day life, people going like, well, I want to keep all the calories I've got. Most people are talking about how can I burn them? And so it's been proven that 1 minute of laughter it burns the same number of calories that it would if you spent 10 minutes on a rowing machine. And that sounds much easier to me. I like the idea of 1 minute of laughter versus 10 minutes on a rowing machine. The other thing that has been shown is that it doesn't matter if it's genuine laughter or if you're faking it. Your body doesn't know, it still burns the calories. So even if your boss isn't funny, right? Like if you've ever, I know y'all are all small business owners, but if you ever worked for somebody who wasn't funny and you were faking it, you were still getting the calorie burning benefit. So that's something to keep in mind. And the other thing that they've shown as a physical benefit for laughter is it massages your internal organs. And I know a lot of people are like, it's been a while since I've had a good spleen massage. I probably want to try to work that in today. And laughter, for whatever reason, the benefit of internal organ massage really helps. I gave this presentation a couple of weeks ago, and the lady raised her hand and she was like, it definitely massages my bladder. And she just meant it makes her wet her pants when she laughs too hard. And I thought that was funny. So there are definite physical benefits that we see personally when we are laughing. And then there are mental benefits as well. And I think these are huge. We are in a time in human history where mental health issues are kind of constantly rising. And so these are things, laughter can actually physically benefit or mentally benefit us in addition to those physical benefits. So we see a increased endorphins, and endorphins is a hormone. Endorphins are a hormone that you will see increase whenever you exercise, right? So when you are on that rowing machine, there's an increase in your endorphins, which is good. That helps mentally. We will see it decreased cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So we actually see that go down. The other times that we see that go down is like in meditation or prayer, in those moments of stillness, we will find decreased cortisol. And then we see increased dopamine, which is the positive hormone that gets released in your brain during sex. And so if you think about it, laughing is like working out and meditating and having sex all at the same time, but logistically easier and a little more time efficient. And so there's benefit there in our brains when we are laughing. Okay. Thoughts or questions or personal experience where you have seen personal benefit from laughter? Anybody?
Well, can you hear me, guys?
We can, John.
Okay, hi, sorry. Just checking. So, like, why don't you just combine like sex and all that stuff together? You know,
Well,
laugh, sex. What
all
else
of
can
it,
you
sure.
combine?
I would
Exercise, yoga, stretching.
all at once. Well, and I tell you what, that's
Maybe.
probably a different webinar on how to do all those things at once.
I'm just
And so
kidding. No, I didn't mean to bring that topic up. I was just kind of like making my dark humor joke.
no, I love it. I love it. I'm just trying to imagine, trying to be on the rowing machine, kind of doing all of the things while meditating, and
Hey,
probably laughter is just easier.
yeah, you know what? I can't. I can't. Okay, sorry to bring that up because I don't want to imagine any of that.
Okay. All right, there you go, John. There has been a study that shows that babies laugh on average of 300 times a day. Babies laugh 300 times a day. And is there any more infectious sound in all of the world than a baby's laughter? But do you know how often the study showed that middle-aged people laugh? Somebody in their 40s, do you know how many times they laugh on average a day? Four. Four. So if you think about all of the benefits that we're talking about that you get physically and mentally from laughter, babies are getting that 300 times a day. That's why their stress level is so low. And the rest of us, we're at four. We're averaging 4 times a day. And I was curious if y'all have thoughts about why that is. What changes between babyhood and middle age that causes our laughter to decrease so much? Do you have any thoughts?
8 to 5.
Yeah, jobs, right? Work, responsibility, all of the things, all of a sudden we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. And I guess my question is, if we know what the benefits of laughter are, and we know it can help our bodies feel better and our minds feel better as we're carrying those responsibilities and burdens, it seems to me that we would want to be intentional to try to incorporate more laughter into our lives instead of just getting kind of firmly rooted in the stressors of the day. Now, let me take this and just kind of point it toward leadership for a second. Think about the people who work for you. They've got 8 to 5s, and some of their stress might be you, right? Like that's something we've got to consider when we're in that leadership role. I would love to see us thinking about what are the things that are getting in the way of laughter for our people. And as their leader, as someone who's expressing care for them in that leadership role, can we eliminate any of those things that are creating stress for them? Can we create opportunities to bring laughter in for them so that they are experiencing more joy? They've got reduced muscle tension. They've got, a quieter mind. What can we do in our role to do that? And that's really what I want us to be thinking about as we go through the rest of this presentation. The next, we're going to try to transition from personal benefits of laughter to organizational benefits of laughter. Lots of good things happen. Oh, did somebody say something? No, that was an accident. Okay. There are lots of organizational benefits to laughter as well. And I've kind of alluded to some of them, but we see when we laugh with people, we see accelerated feelings of trust, of closeness, and of comfort. When you think about the people that you really, really like, I just nearly bet you laugh with them, that there is this closeness there. And we know that trust is kind of foundational in leadership. It's really hard for a team to be on the same page, pursuing common goals if we lack trust. And studies are showing that laughter helps that. It helps accelerate that feeling of trust. And so we want to be thinking as leaders, how can we incorporate this more? Another thing we see is increased creativity or boosted creativity where if I feel safe that we're all kind of laughing about all of the things, then if we're laughing at me because I brought a silly idea to the table, okay, because that's not the only time we're laughing. So creativity can kind of blossom in an environment where we can just laugh things off and we're not taking things too seriously. So we're coming up with the best solutions for our clients. We're coming up with better solutions for problems when they arise, because everybody has kind of that safe feeling of being able to bring stuff to the table and know that we can just kind of laugh that off. And I'll give you an example. So I own this consulting company, but in addition to that, I serve on a church staff. And every Monday morning we sit around a conference table and have a staff meeting, and our pastor leads it. And sometimes he comes up with some off the wall ideas. Let's just call them out of the box, creative ideas. And he'll say something and someone on our team will go, well, that's an idea, and we can kind of laugh about it. And even the leader of the organization is like, I'm not immune to having bad ideas. Okay. And he'll say, well, that means it's a bad one. All right, moving on. And it's just kind of lighthearted, but everybody then knows they can bring their ideas. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about boosted creativity. The other thing we see is improved morale, where we start to see working relationships strengthened as trust and closeness and comfort is being accelerated. We see improved workplace relationships. And really that's the crux of everything that I do in my consulting practice, is trying to build stronger teams, because it makes a difference. We spend our lives at work, and we actually would really love to enjoy the people we work with instead of being miserable with them. And if laughter does that, then I want to be the kind of leader that pushes for and makes room for humor in the workplace where it's appropriate, so that we can work on those relationships. Because when we see improved morale, we begin to see decreased turnover, and all of the costs and everything that come with hiring and training and turnover gets reduced, and the business benefits as well. We also see lower stress, right? Or think back to all of those physical and mental benefits we just talked about at a personal level. So if we have a workplace culture where laughter is allowable, championed, then we can see stress start to go down in our people. We see their shoulders start to come down. We see them be able to be a little more relaxed. And I don't know about you, but I make better choices when I'm not stressed out. I think more clearly when I'm not stressed out. And just on top of all of that, I've never heard one person, not one time in any 360-degree review say, you know what we need around here is more stress. We definitely need to get a double portion of that. Nobody ever says that. People want less stress, and laughter makes that possible. And so we want us to be thinking about that. And then the other thing is we see increased productivity with laughter, because laughter is building connection, and studies have shown that productivity goes up 20 to 25% whenever a team is connected. And so I'm looking at it going, man, there's no reason not to bring laughter into the workplace, unless of course we're like, but I'm not funny, in which case we're going to address that in just a little bit. It's okay if you're not funny. Not everybody is, but there are people around you who are, and we're going to make it work for us. So let's look at then, well, let me ask this. Any other thoughts you would add? Have you ever worked in a place where you saw laughter make a real difference in the working environment, or stress relief or anything like that?
I think it's just intuitive when you're at, an organization or a place that is just more serious. It doesn't create creativity, it doesn't create trust or any of that. But, when you're in a loose environment that, people are just more able to be themselves, I always feel that that's more comfortable.
I think you're right. And it's not necessarily something that's quantifiable, but you can feel it. It's still got a tangible quality to it, that we can connect a little better, and we can relax a little bit. And so you do see lower stress. And there are workplaces where things are life and death, right? Right? Like, it is a serious environment. But even there, I would advocate that there is still room for laughter in that. My mom was a cop for 16 years. That was legitimately a life or death environment. And they found the police force, they find a way to laugh about stuff. Now, granted, it's not the stuff like the civilians were like, that's not funny. That was kind of dark. But based on what they're dealing with, that was what was necessary for them to be able to cope and relax. And so, yes, exactly what you're saying, Roger, is spot on. Let's transition a little bit and look at leadership benefits of laughter and how the leader specifically can benefit in laughter. One of them being, we have, and I think my screen might have skipped to, hold on just a sec. No, just kidding. All right. Well, here we are. We are seeing improved impressions of leaders whenever there's laughter, and communicating confidence. So we see when a leader can not take things so seriously, when a leader doesn't have the mentality of the sky is falling when something bad comes up, then it creates and communicates confidence to the employees that this leader feels like this is under control enough that they can joke about it, that they can laugh about the thing that's happening, that it doesn't have to be so serious. When we get really stony faced and we're like, oh man, we got to figure out how to make this work, it creates nervousness in our people. But our humor is a way that we can create confidence in them for things that are coming. The other thing is, laughter will humanize a leader. There's this thing called the pratfall effect. And in the pratfall effect, it's this psychological phenomenon where people distance themselves from others who appear to be perfect. And so when we are willing to share our imperfections or our weaknesses, and we're able to laugh at ourselves, it makes us more relatable. So people feel like they can get close to us. Now, I'm not saying if you're a hot mess to make sure the whole world knows you're a hot mess. I think that messes with confidence in your leadership as well. But if you've got a relatable flaw or something that is easy for you to communicate that people can latch onto, do it. For example, I'm terrified of birds. I don't know why. I like big dogs, but birds scare just the absolute crud out of me. And I worked in a place one time that was, we're out in the country. And so we've got an office building on this big trucking yard, and there's a huge wraparound porch that goes around the building. And there are 4 different entrances, and every spring at every single entrance to the building, the barn swallows, the little birds, will build their nests in the exact same spot. And here's the thing about barn swallows. Mama barn swallows are so aggressive when there are babies in the nest. They will attack. And I am afraid of birds. And they lived at every entrance to our building. And so on one particular day, I'm trying to walk into the building, and it doesn't matter which door I try to go in, they are chasing me. Like they are like dive bombing me as I'm trying to get in the building. And so I just jump off the porch and I'm screaming, running through the trucking yard. It felt like a flock of birds. I don't know if you ever saw the Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Birds. It felt like that. I think there were just 2 or 3, but it felt like I was being chased by a flock of birds, and I'm just screaming through the yard until I could find an entrance that was safe to get in. And the first thing that I did when I got inside was go to my employees' offices and tell them about the ridiculous thing that just happened to me, because I'm aware of the pratfall effect. And I'm aware that the people around me have communicated to me, they think I have my life together. And nothing could be further from the truth, but it has an appearance. And so sometimes perception is reality for people. And we've got to do something to kind of break that down and be willing to share the humorous, funny things or the weaknesses that we have, so that they know they can connect with us because we're human as well. The other thing that we see as a benefit to leadership is that it builds that increased connection with employees because they believe that we are connectable. We're relatable enough that they can actually connect to us. Somebody said it this way. They said, however seriously you take yourself is inversely proportionate to how seriously other people take you. So if you take yourself really seriously, and everybody else is laughing at you behind your back, more than likely. And if we are willing to laugh at ourselves, then they're laughing with us, and they actually take us more seriously than if we're just trying to like force that to pass. John Maxwell, I don't know if you guys have heard of John Maxwell, great leadership expert. He's written a lot of books. In fact, I would say if you've never read anything by him, you should look up 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It's a great book. But one of the things John Maxwell says is that if you want to get through to people, you must connect with them. And we just spent all this time talking about how laughter makes it possible for us to connect with people. So as a leader, we really want to take that into consideration and try to use that to our advantage. There are a few more benefits I wanted to talk about. We see an improved impression of the leader. Here's why. Humor in studies and what do they call it? Surveys. That's the word I'm looking for. Surveys done with employees. The number one factor that people use whenever they are forming an impression of a leader is their sense of humor. It's the number one thing that they use. Like, can they laugh? That matters to people. And we don't always think about that. They certainly take into account some other things, but the number one thing that gets used when they're forming an impression of us is humor. And so that's something to consider. Also, leaders are more perceived to be more admirable and to be able to motivate better when they use laughter. In fact, Social Behavior and Personality, which is an academic journal, says that leaders with a sense of humor are found to be 27% more admirable and motivating. People respond to leaders who lead with laughter, and they're motivated in their work product. They are admired more. So that's something that we can consider. Also, there was a study done by Communication Reports back in the 90s, and I'm thinking about how much simpler of a time the 90s seemed than right now today. I don't know if y'all feel that way. Anyway, even back in the 90s, there were 2 factors that were twice as much considered in terms of whether or not they liked a manager than any other characteristics. They wanted to know that they had work ethic, and they wanted to know that they had a sense of humor. And they looked at those two specific characteristics 2 times more than any other characteristic that that leader might have had. And so that's something to consider. Also, we've got leaders that have increased likability as a manager whenever they are leading with laughter. Humor has been shown to reduce social distance and to draw people in. It makes leaders seem more approachable, as we've talked about, and also makes us seem more supportive of people. And then there's this whole concept of, like people really do actually just like to have fun. Like it is so much more fun to come to work when work is not awful, when there's an element of fun to it. And so even if you're not funny, you can think of ways to incorporate fun into your work environment and reap some of these leadership benefits of laughter. We were doing a fundraiser one day, and we decided we needed to get people to have some skin in the game. And so it was something as simple as, we were like, you know what? If we reach our goal and we have X number of people here for this event to support it, then all of the pastoral team will take pies in the face. And then everybody, the congregation of the church got to pie us all in the face. And it was funny. They enjoyed it. They were like nearly taking, like bribing each other. Like, no, let me do it. And it created this atmosphere of fun, even if nobody said something funny, so to speak. So just be thinking about ways that we can use fun. I would love to hear from you guys. Have you ever seen a leader effectively use humor? And have you experienced any of these benefits in the way that you saw connection with employees? Have y'all ever seen that?
Gosh, I feel like most of the time that I've seen leaders that I would consider leaders, they always seem to be, some humor aspect to them for sure.
Sure. And we'll talk in a minute that there's lots of different ways to do that. I worked with my dad for 9 years. He was the COO of our organization. He was a pro at this. He was always cutting up and laughing and bringing joy into a room, not to be mistaken with the fact that he would absolutely hold you accountable for the work that needed to be done. But there was this thing that happened where people respected him so much because he was so approachable and so likable, that whenever he had to correct, there was a foundation of trust that had already been built. And people would leave those meetings where they were being corrected, and not gently even, leave going, I'm so glad that happened. I had somebody tell me, I've never thanked somebody for chewing my butt out before, but that was real. I needed that. And it was because he led with laughter all of the time, and people felt so connected to him. And so I think you're right, Roger. Leaders will have some element of that. And so let's say you're watching the webinar right now and you're like, okay, I'm totally in, Ashley. I know humor matters, but how in the world do I pull this off? I'm going to start with be who you are. Be who you are. Don't try to be funny like anybody else. That's disingenuous, and people see straight through it, and it makes them uncomfortable. I told you that my dad, super funny. The CEO of the company saw that, admired that in him, saw how people responded, and tried to pull off the same kind of funny, and it did not work. And so we've got to be who we are instead of trying to be funny like somebody else. If you're not naturally funny, don't try to force it, but create outlet and opportunity for other people to be funny if they are. You might not be ha-ha funny, but maybe you're aha funny, right? Like you're clever, or you're punny, or you're the one that you don't come up with your own material, but you've always got a dad joke in your back pocket ready to go. I used to lead the kids area at church, and to start the night, I just like looked up a dad joke on the phone, and the kids all thought it was so cringy and just kind of like, oh, that's terrible. And the adults thought it was hysterical because the kids hated it so much. And so it was like this, it was this element that we did and it worked. And so maybe that's you. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm not funny, but I'm going to pull up a really cringy dad joke. And that's how I'm going to start staff meetings, or that's how I'm going to, I'm going to send that out as a way of bringing laughter in, even if it's not naturally in me. Some people are outlandishly funny, or physically funny. Think about, I don't know if y'all ever saw like the 90s movie Tommy Boy, but Chris Farley was a physical comedian, and that's how he was funny. That's not how everybody's funny. Some people have that very dry, quiet humor, and it's all funny, and it's okay to just be who you are in that. There are several ways. Maybe it's jokes. Maybe it's banter. You can just kind of, you're quippy and you can go back and forth with people, or you're great at one-liners, or maybe you come up with funny visual aids for the stuff you're trying to explain, or you tell funny stories. You maybe not snappy funny, but you can deliver a story in a way that helps people to laugh. Maybe it's your facial expression or your body language. I'll tell you what mine are, but I'd be curious to know, for those of you who are actively on the call, how are you most likely to use humor just in your day-to-day life?
I want to relate that at my last job, I was in the quality team, and when I had to go get, it was a huge factory, and then I knew that when I had to go get a particular compressor out of the logistics warehouse, the ladies that work there and manage these huge forklifts that like went up 2 floors automatically, uh, I knew they were playful, and I would speak to them in English because I'm in Portugal, right? So I would say stuff like "Hello, ladies," and it became like our thing, and it was great because like not only did I get a ride one time up all these pallets, I don't know why, I don't know where OSHA was, but nevertheless, you know what I found is that like when she saw me, she was happy to see me. And that meant that I was going to get my compressor. You know what I'm saying? Instead of
That's
like
good.
getting it, like instead of getting those excuses of like, oh, we got an order to ship, can you come back in 2 hours? You know what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes I really, not to manipulate, it was like a double gift. It was like I knew that if I was funny with this person, I would get their attention and their
Absolutely.
cooperation.
Well, and so you bring up another good point, which is sometimes it's not necessarily something funny that's said, but we come up with an inside joke. Like we've got kind of our rhythm of humor. I'm like this with one of the guys at the church. He's very dry. He's very dry. He's never going to crack a joke. But he allows me to do what I do. And then he just kind of looks at me, and his facial expressions get me every single time. Daphne, it looks like you said, I have the great gift of thinking I'm funny, but probably most don't agree, but I don't care. So I use humor a lot too. Absolutely. So part of it is just thinking we're entertaining. My primary tools for laughter are banter. Like I can just kind of go back and forth and play off of whatever you say and hit you with something funny, or a one-liner, or facial expressions and body language. And I wanted to prove it for you. This is legitimate faces that I make whenever I'm communicating for a living. And I don't even, that last one with the little dinosaur arms, I don't even know what that is. But I have found that because I am very expressive with my face, I can just make faces that make people laugh. And so it doesn't even have to be words. It can just be the way you use your body and the way you use your face. All right, so we're going to be who we are. We're not going to try to be anybody else. We also, as leaders, need to laugh at ourselves first and be willing to laugh at ourselves. So this is a very serious man, right? Abraham Lincoln, very serious man. He's got a very serious face. He lived in a time when people didn't smile for photos, right? But he had a great sense of humor, actually. And so there was this one day, he's giving a speech in front of this crowd, And somebody stands up in the crowd and they go, "You're two-faced, Abe Lincoln." And just immediately Abe said, "If I had two faces, do you really think I would have chosen this one?" You know, like, this is the best. If I've got two options, this is not the one I'm picking. And humor disarms. Man, humor disarms. And so he used that beautifully. And so we can think about that too. He was willing to kind of self-deprecatingly laugh at himself, and it disarmed the room. And so we can think about that as well. We talked about sharing your mistakes and your failures and your bloopers. I will tell you, this requires a fair amount of humility and humanity to pull off. You have to be willing to go, "I am not perfect." As a leader, if you are terrified that people will think you are a fraud, you're not going to point out your failures and your flaws. But I'm telling you, if you do it, people will connect with you more than they ever will if you try to act like you have it all together and you never mess up. Recently, I was at a presentation and we'd gone through this, and I said, "Does anybody have a blooper that they would be willing to share?" And I heard the funniest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It was the new kid to the block, and they had just been there for a few months maybe, and it was time for the holiday party. And so she starts telling the story, and she says, I went to the bathroom, and I took off my dress like you do, and I immediately have questions. I'm like, I don't actually know anybody that takes off their dress in a public place to go to the bathroom. She doesn't even know that that's funny, and the rest of us are losing our minds. I'm like, no, that's not how you do it. But in the bathroom, there was not like a cabinet. There was just a little pedestal sink. And what she said is, so I took off my dress and I laid it across the sink because that was the only place there's not a hook on the door because you're not supposed to get naked in the bathroom. Anyway, so she lays her dress across the sink at this holiday party, and the sink has an automatic start. And so as soon as she lays it across, the water comes on because it's perceived that their hands are underneath, and her dress got completely soaked. And she's telling that story, and we are laughing so hard. And first of all, I so appreciated the humility it took to say, like, I did a really dumb thing, because that day at the party, like, she just kind of she put on her soaking wet dress and then just kind of backed out of the party and went home, because what else are you going to do? And so, but she was willing to share that with the other people in the leadership team. And I, almost before my very eyes, watched her become one of the team instead of the new kid on the block. And so humility is necessary to laugh at ourselves, but I'm telling you, I've seen it connect people. It's huge. The other thing that we can do, especially if we're not the funny one and we're trying to find a way to bring humor into the workplace, is create and share in the silly experiences with your team. If you do a dunking booth, if you do a ropes course, if you do some sort of icebreaker, don't be the leader that goes, "We're going to create this. You guys do it. I am far too dignified for that. I'm just going to stay back here and watch." Get in the big middle of it. Be the one who's willing to take the pie in the face. Be the one who's willing to look like an idiot with that ropes course harness that's not attractive on anybody. Be the one who's willing to do the silly things and get in the midst of the fun with your people and mix it up. The other thing you can do, if you're not, particularly funny, or even if you are, is just be playful within the organization. Give funny names to the rooms where you meet, or what you call your swag, or if you've got like we call our staff meeting, that could have a way better name attached to it. Something, like, we're going to go to the leadership lagoon and have a, mindset mingle or something, something ridiculous that even just the silliness of it could make people laugh. So don't be afraid to be playful. I have my business insurance guy does this really well, and it comes through even as a client of his. Whenever he sends out of office emails, he doesn't just say, "Hey, we're going to be closed for the holiday, happy whatever, and see you on Monday." he puts a lot of thought and effort into it. And so this past Christmas, he sent an email to all of his clients to say that the office was going to be closed. And it was like his holiday greeting. And so what he did is he said, while we may not have the entire office glowing quite like Clark Griswold, we're undoubtedly bright with appreciation for your continued trust and support this holiday season. And then there's this Griswold gif, you know, where like the lights come on and you see his face brighten up. And so that's just flashing on you in the middle of the email. And then it says, we hope you have a holiday season that's merry, bright, and free of any and all electrical surprises. And I giggled so much when I got that. And all it took was a little bit of time. He's clever. That's how he's funny. When I've talked to him on the phone, he's not like he's an insurance guy. He's not that funny, but he found a way to bring humor into the business. And as his client, even, I felt connected to him. Here's some more ways that we can heap up humor in the workplace. And I say this cautiously, but light teasing goes a long way. My dad did that. He was a pro at that. He could tease you about the things that you might be a little uneasy about, and in doing so made them okay. So the guy that I was telling you that I work with, that's really dry, and he just kind of gives the looks. He's the one that says like, well, that's an idea. I mean, and it's not condescending. It's just so dry and it's so funny. He is so creative and so musical, but he never did sports or anything. So he's not the least bit athletic. And in our building, there are these little ramps that you run, like that you leave one area of the church, and then there's a little up ramp to get to the next flat area, like where the church has been added on to over the years. And for whatever reason, he puts his arms behind him like he's going in flight and kind of jogs up every ramp. It's completely unnecessary. A human could just walk up it, but that's how he goes up the ramp every time. And I caught him doing it, and I said, hey, are you going into flight that I don't know about? Why are you running up these ramps? And he didn't know he did it. And then we giggled about it. And so now every time he starts to go up a ramp or go somewhere fast, for that matter, he deliberately does it to make me laugh. And I try to catch him doing it when I don't know, so that I can tease him about it. And it's just kind of this, it's the inside joke, right? It's the thing that we have in common. And so light teasing can go a lot of ways, a lot of depth into building relationships. I will tell you, it says carefully, right? Because not everybody jokes the same way I joke. And I need to be aware of how people respond. And I'll tell you, the first thing that I do if I feel like I have crossed a line or hurt a feeling is apologize immediately, and then make a mental note that that's not a person I can joke with like that. For those of us who love to tease, teasing is like instant camaraderie. For those who do not love to tease, it is very off-putting. And so I say proceed with caution, be very socially aware, and make adjustments as needed. Also, bringing humor into hard situations is so important as a leader. There was, you might know who Madeleine Albright is. She was the Secretary of State for some period of time. And the U.S. Treasury, there had been a rumor that the U.S. Treasury had been bugged by the Russian government. And then Madeleine Albright had a meeting that she needed to have with the Russian government. And this is how she showed up, with a huge bug pin on her shoulder. So she didn't shy away from it. She was like, I'm going to go head in, but I'm going to lead with humor into it. And she says that completely changed the dynamic of that conversation. They were able to laugh about the obvious, kind of address the elephant in the room, if you will, and they were able to have a much different conversation. That little bit of levity made a huge difference. Some people believe that levity or laughter is inappropriate with gravity, really serious situations. But research is showing otherwise, that people really respond well when we're using levity in those difficult moments. There was a CEO during COVID, when COVID first hit and everybody shut down, and everybody was trying to kind of figure out, what do we do? There was a CEO that called like a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, and everybody was on it. And he gives his address, says good morning, and then he very intentionally left his screen share on. and he transitioned the call to the next presenter, but he left his screen share on, and then he typed in inspiring things CEOs say during difficult situations so that everybody could see him typing that. And what it did was add just a little bit of laughter into the moment to say, like, none of us know what we're doing in this moment, but I'm in it with you, instead of I'm above it and I know all the answers and I'm just not telling you yet. And so bringing humor into hard situations is good. The other thing we can do, especially if we're not funny, but even if we are, is don't squash natural humor in others. Make space, make room for the funny person on your team to be the funny person on your team. When they say something funny, like if I'm not funny, but somebody on my team is, and I know the importance of laughter, I'm going to make sure that I'm belly laughing when they say funny things. I don't want to give anything away in my body language that would indicate I'm not okay with that. I want to support that kind of laughter and let those who are funny carry the load for me, and just be looking for ways that I can add to that in a natural way that's not me trying to be somebody else. One other way that you can use humor to your advantage as a leader is to read between the punchlines. Some people want to tell you constructive feedback about the organization, about your leadership, whatever, but they do not have the tools necessary to know how to do it. Humor may be the only tool in their belt. And so they are saying things that they are serious about in a sarcastic way, or in kind of a passive aggressive, like they're making a joke about it, but it's serious. Pay attention to the things people are joking about, because it might give you a little bit of insight into something that needs to be addressed or adjusted within the organization. So that's another reason to allow the freedom of laughter, because you can actually learn stuff by even in the things that are not being specifically articulated as issues in the business. Now, there are some potential pitfalls with humor, and that just goes with it. We want to make sure that we're aware that proximity to someone produces possibility to joke around or tease. So I usually don't lead with that with somebody that I've never met, or I will joke in a very, like I didn't make fun of the way Alex runs up the ramp the first day I met him. I waited until I knew him a little bit. It's kind of the idea that I can talk about my mama, but you can't talk about my mama. There needs to be a closeness there for us to be able to joke around or have that camaraderie. But there is a beautiful thing that happens when the leader or the business owner is willing to joke and tease and cut up, and especially be willing to take the brunt of some of that humor, because it does so much to build camaraderie on the team. As a leader, until you have that rapport with somebody, you would never want to punch down. You would never want to make fun of or tease people under your leadership until that's been established, until you open yourself up to be teased yourself. And again, we're reading the room. So if I say something and I can tell it didn't land, it's an immediate and sincere apology. And then I make a mental note that I'm not repeating that again. Here's a really good hint for whether somebody actually, because people will laugh about things even when they don't think it's funny. If they feel like they must because of their boss. That's the other reason to be careful about how we're joking around. But watch their eyes, because I can laugh with my mouth and you heard laughter and I'm getting the calorie burning benefits, but my eyes didn't crinkle. And when I'm really laughing, when I'm sincere and I really think what you said was funny, you're going to know it, because I mean, everything on my face is going to kind of crinkle up. That's middle age, but for sure, everybody's going to have these little crinkles right here around the eyes. So watch for that. And if they are giving you an obligatory laugh, then they don't think you're funny, right? Or they don't think that thing that you said was funny. And so maybe that's something to go back and circle around. For example, I made a joke the other day about parenting with one of the guys on the team. And I was pretty sure he knew I was kidding. And he knew that I meant that in fun and in love. But I wasn't 100% sure. So I just circled back. Like I called him later and say like, hey, just wanted to make sure you knew that I was kidding. And he was like, oh my gosh, of course I knew. but his face, I couldn't read it. I didn't know for sure. So I made a point to confirm. So just being aware of those things, reading the room, apologize when we cross the line, own up to it. Don't kind of have the mentality of like, they're just too sensitive. Like, no, as a leader, if you have crossed a line or hurt feelings, you need to take ownership of that. Remember again that humor and humility go hand in hand. And so we want to make sure as the leader, we are the butt of the joke as much or more than anybody else is, and that we are putting ourselves in a position to be laughed at or laughed with at our own mistakes at least. And then I don't feel like I would be a good HR person if I didn't say this. Workplace laws apply. So you can't make discriminatory jokes. You can't make jokes that are hateful in nature. You can't make jokes that put a group of people down or put people down in such a way that diminishes their value in the organization. It's lighthearted. We're not making fun of things that they have no control over. And so I just felt like probably since I'm an HR consultant, I should make sure that you know that, although I'm certain that you already did. Can you guys think of any other potential pitfalls that could come from using humor in the workplace? John, you mentioned inside jokes. I've had someone say, you know what? Making sure that all of your humor is not inside jokes is important so that when you get new people on the team, they feel like they're part of it instead of outside of what is already happening. So that's something to consider as well. And so if I'm you and I'm in that, in there with those lift operators, like I'm trying to, oh, you're new to the team, we're about to have an inside joke. Just give me a second. I'm going to figure it out. And trying to make sure everybody's got their place. All right. Any other thoughts? We're almost done. If you don't have other thoughts.
I think there's always the possibility of, hurting somebody's feeling or somebody taking something wrong. Because you just can't, if someone's having a bad day and they're not in that space, then they're just not. And so, assess yourself and was there cause, work it out with that person. But sometimes people just, it hits wrong,
100%. And sometimes it's fine today and it's not fine tomorrow. And so that's a great point, Daphne. And so what I want us to be cautious of is that we're not like, what is his problem? That was fine yesterday. I don't know why he's so sensitive today, and kind of put it on it like it's their problem. No, if we're joking and it doesn't hit right, it hits all wrong, then we need to own the responsibility for that and just be willing to say, hey man, I'm really sorry. That was not, I did not mean that how it came across, or, I didn't mean that how obviously it was received, and that's my bad.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point for sure.
Sometimes I feel like there are people or situations that just joke too much or use humor, over and over and over, and you're like, okay, we're trying to move on here. But anyway, some of that exists as well.
I think you're right, Roger. And I think that's another reason to read the room. Like we're not trying to joke around so much that we never talk about what needs to be talked about. We're not trying to joke around so much that we aren't holding people accountable to the things we expect from them. Like it's none of that, but also read the room. If they were totally laughing, I remember learning this lesson as a like a teenager, where you're totally, you recognize that people will respond to your humor. And so then you push it too far, like you just keep going. And then it's like, oh, they stopped laughing. Okay, mental note, I went too far. And kind of like learning what that boundary is. I think it comes down to a social awareness or an emotional awareness of what's going on with other people and knowing when too much is too much. I think that's a valid point as well. And certainly that we would not use laughter as a time waster. But that also knowing as a leader that it's only wasting time if we're wasting time while we're doing it. If we are actively building connection, then it matters. And if we are keeping people from doing their job because we're just in there with our phone reading one dad joke after another, probably we've crossed over into wasting time. And so finding the balance in that is more of an art than a science, but great point.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
I was just gonna add maybe like an experience that I had in a factory again as part of the quality team, and BMW would overnight flight any of the defects, right? Because it was serious. And I would go to the lab with the mechanical team, right? And we would be like opening up the compressor, and I mean, kind of laughing about it, but we knew it was serious, right? And I can tell you, 3 or 4 guys just kind of like kidding around, opening up the compressor, but lighthearted. When we saw our manager, the quality manager, greatest boss ever, walk in with no smile on his face, I mean, it was one of those moments when it was like, you know, it was
Mhm.
like, it was white to black. It was just like, it was instant.
You read the room and you knew, okay, now we're
Oh
serious.
yeah. And
Yeah.
plus he had the supplier quality engineer, which had like very bad sarcastic humor. And when I saw those 2 guys, I'm like, oh, party's over.
Yeah.
It
And
happens, but I
there
mean,
there
yeah.
is something to be said for being aware whether I'm the leader in the organization or not, just being aware of that socially. So I think that's really good, y'all.
Yeah.
My final thought is going to be this. You can lead with laughter. You absolutely can. According to John Maxwell, again, he says that our words and actions have the ability to be a fountain or a drain on others. Meaning, we can either spill over in abundance of joy on the people around us, or we can drain the life right out of them. And so, yes, there is time to be serious and there is time to do work, but there's always room for laughter in our leadership. And we can think about it in terms of, I want to spill over joy instead of being just a drain. When we will lead the way, making humility and humanity and humor commonplace in the marketplace, well, then we're creating an environment where our team and our business can thrive. And so that is my encouragement to you. If you're like, okay, I'm intrigued by this and I want more tools and resources, I've got a few to tell you about in addition to the SBDC. You've got humorthatworks.com. They've got a quick free quiz where you can try to figure out what your humor persona is, like how you're funny. And kind of work through how to make that work for you. There's a guy called Michael Kerr. You can follow him on social media at Humor at Work. And he puts out all sorts of stuff about how to use humor at work. And then there's all sorts of YouTube videos and TED Talks and all of that. And you can also lean on the experts at the SBDC and look to them for more resources and tools on how to grow in your leadership and impact your business more positively. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Suresh.
Wait, can I ask one question?
Of course.
Michael Kerr, how do you spell his last name?
Kerr.
Thank you, ma'am.
Of course.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, and you had an opportunity to talk about my goof up in the beginning when I didn't bring up the first screen. Thank you, Ashley. That was such a nice presentation.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us today. We will be sending out a survey following this webinar. And this shows all the upcoming webinars on this slide, as you can see. We have one coming up tomorrow, reducing income tax by saving for retirement, followed by the QuickBooks Online series. We have other webinars coming up for October. You can certainly go to the SBDC website, which is at the bottom, sbdc.nctc.edu, where you can register for these webinars. You can get contact information and also be able to schedule an appointment with an advisor. You will find resources also for small business owners. I'd like to take this moment to thank our funding organizations, the Small Business Administration, the State of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and the North Central Texas College. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. This concludes our webinar.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.